You may be asking, I'm doing a messaging workshop. Why should I care about email marketing? And you're correct, that learning messaging will make a tremendous difference to your marketing efforts. But you can't ignore that for a lot of online businesses, email is a significant contributing factor from turning prospects into customers. Email experts say between 20 to 35% of an e-commerce business total revenue should come from their email list, closer to 50 to 60% during the busy Q4 holiday season. For every $1 spent on email, the average return is between $30 to $42. That's a 4,200% ROI. So if done correctly, email is a proven and lucrative medium that when used as part of your overall sales cycle, it can provide a greater return on your advertising dollars. But there's one thing that can derail all this. Even with the most amazing message, if no one sees it, I guarantee you it's not going to work. So making sure your prospects see your marketing messages in your emails is what we're going to talk about today. Now, this can be a huge topic with many rabbit holes, but I'll do my best to give you plenty of actionable advice. But first, a quick introduction. My name's Sasha Sibree. I've done several things in my career, including working for some .coms back in the early 2000s. I've also worked for a few marketing agencies. And for the last 10 years, I've been helping e-commerce companies with their marketing and operations. One of my clients had a good-sized email list of about 600,000 people. And despite it being extremely lucrative to the business, we were starting to see issues. For example, during some of our promotion, our emails were getting throttled, meaning we'd triggered filters at inbox providers like Gmail, so they would only accept a small volume of our emails at a time, basically stalling our sends. When this started to happen frequently, I decided I needed to take a deep dive into email authentication and inbox placement and figure out what was happening. To my surprise, it was hard to find help. There were consultants and tools available, but they were priced for Fortune 500 sized companies and not for small to mid-sized businesses. But I knew I needed to do something, so I persisted and finally found an extremely knowledgeable fellow. But I had to talk him into mentoring me. But thanks to his guidance and much testing and tweaking on my part, I got us back in the good books with the inbox providers and have since had 2 separate email experts tell us our list, especially for its size, is one of the best managed email lists they've seen. This led me to the opportunity to work with these 2 different experts. Some of their clients have included Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels, Dean Grazioski, Tony Robbins, Amy Porterfield, Scott Oldfield, and Perry Marshall, just to name a few. So I'm not just someone who has experience in this topic, I'm someone who's still in the trenches on a daily basis. So here's what I want you to know. The rules of email marketing are changing. Now, I don't want to sound an alarmist. Time will tell how quickly this plays out, but in October 2023, Google and Yahoo both made announcements that were making major changes to their requirements for bulk email senders starting February 2024. The 3 new requirements included number 1, email authentication, number 2, easy unsubscribe, and number 3, a spam threshold below 0.3%. Before we dive deeper into what this all means and what to do about it, let's talk about why they're doing this. There's 3 major reasons. According to Symantec, one of the world's leading cybersecurity companies, 85% of all emails sent are either malicious or spam. That equates to 22 billion spam emails a day, or 250,000 per second. Basically, spam is out of control. Number 2, email volume has doubled since the pandemic as more businesses have developed an online presence. Number 3, email users are overwhelmed with the number of emails they receive daily. Since Google makes money via advertising, it's in their best interest to keep eyeballs on their different web properties for as long as possible. There must have been something in their stats to make them worried because Google announced its goal is to declutter the inbox so users will only see the messages that they want to see in the hope that they won't abandon email as a daily communication tool. As you probably know, there's also been major advancements in AI, giving Google the opportunity for the first time ever to significantly combat spam. You may have noticed that Microsoft, the other main free inbox provider, didn't join Google and Yahoo in making this announcement. I don't know this for sure, but Microsoft has always been stricter with their requirements and probably didn't feel the need to make further changes at this time. So what do the new requirements mean? Number 1, email authentication. Email authentication is a way to verify the sender of an email. There's a lot of nuances to email authentication, but basically it involves setting up multiple domain name server records to prove records from your CRM, such as Keep or ActiveCampaign or HubSpot, are being sent on behalf of your business. Having these records establish credibility with inbox providers because spammers don't and can't do this. So think of email authentication acting like the bouncer outside of your prospect's email inbox. If you don't have your ID or you're not on the list, you're not getting in. Number 2, easy unsubscribe. This should be taken care of by most of your CRMs. It's basically pasting some code inside the header so that there's a one-click option to unsubscribe. Number 3, a spam threshold requirement of less than 0.3%. If 0.3% or more of the people you send a bulk email to report you as spam, that may block you from being able to send future emails to that inbox provider. For example, if you send 1,000 emails to your Gmail users and 3 of them report you as spam, that may cause issues. Now, keep in mind that's reporting you as spam, not unsubscribing. I did hear someone from Yahoo say that they will be looking at your average over a period of time and not the performance of just a single email. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But he did also say it's putting everyone on notice. And if you have a history of having a 0.29% spam rate, don't think you're safe. The bottom line is changes are coming. In the long run, this will probably be good for email users, but in the short term, there'll be issues for the unprepared sender. So why haven't I had to worry about this before? Email authentication isn't new. It has been a best practice recommendation for a long time. The problem is very few people did it. So now Google and Yahoo are bringing down the hammer and forcing you to do this. In a recent project I did with EmailSmart, which I'll tell you more about in a few, we found 64% of the domains who used our authentication checker had issues. Google and Yahoo are also forcing you to adopt best practices regarding list management. Since you don't have to pay to send an email, marketers haven't had to worry about who they're sending to, whether they're even interested in what they're sending, or is my content any good? Why? Because up until now, there's been no consequence for not doing a good job with your email marketing. But come February 1st, that all changes. So let me introduce to what I call the new rules of email marketing. Number 1, we need to develop the right mindset about email marketing. We have to accept the rules have changed and we have to play the game differently. Number 2, content is king. We need great content that people are excited to receive. Knowing what messaging your prospects respond to is key here. Number 3, we need to manage who we send to and respect when they're just not that into us anymore, because it's going to happen. And lastly, we need tools to quickly and accurately check how we're doing and fix issues when they arise. So now that we have an overview, let's dive a little deeper and give you some practical advice, starting with mindset. You often hear dating used as an analogy to describe marketing. For example, just as you wouldn't ask someone to marry you on a first date, often you need to build a relationship with your prospects before asking them for the sale. For email marketing, I have a slightly different spin on the dating story. So unfortunately, my marriage ended a few years ago, and I can tell you dating now is a lot different than when I was last single almost 20 years ago. When I was previously single, it was harder to meet people. But when I did, I would ask for their phone number and we'd enjoy a few phone conversations, get to know each other, and if things are going well, we'll go out on a date. If things weren't going well, it was pretty easy to tell that too. Nothing says like, I'm not into you, like hanging up. Nowadays, it's all about apps and text messages. It's never been easy to meet people. And it's busy. It's not uncommon to be chatting with several people at the same time. It's also not uncommon to be having a nice conversation with someone on an app and then nothing. You never hear from them again. Let's relate this back to business. At one time, it was a big deal to getting someone's email address. There was a good chance that if you sent someone an email, they would read it and maybe respond. Now their inbox is busy. It is said on average, people receive 121 emails each day. On top of that, it's not uncommon for people to have more than one email account that they use for different purposes. Now going back to dating. Imagine if I met someone on an app, got their phone number, and we started texting. Perhaps there was some initial interest on their part, but one day they didn't reply. So I text them again the following day. Still no reply. Then I text them again the day after, and the day after that, still no reply. And it went on for weeks of me texting them daily, then months, then maybe even a year. Then I asked them to marry me. What are the chances that person would think I'm a creep? Pretty likely, right? Yet, isn't that how we treat our email list? When you think about it, if someone hasn't opened even one of your emails in over a year, what's the chance they're going to buy something from you? Yeah, I guess it's possible, but it's extremely, extremely unlikely. And this is probably one of the hardest concepts for people to grasp. After all, as a business, you've worked hard and paid money to get those leads. I get it. You don't want to let them go. And perhaps you shouldn't. Now think again about that dating scenario I described earlier. What if after they didn't reply, I waited a day or two before trying again? They still didn't reply. So I waited a few weeks and sent them a nice text saying I was thinking about them today and hadn't heard from them in a while and just wanted to check in, see if everything was okay. Do you think that might go a little differently? We'll talk a little bit more strategy in a few, but I think it's helpful to think of email as an extension of how you should communicate with a real person. And that might involve meeting them where they're at. And if they still don't respond, we have to accept that perhaps they're just not into us anymore. And we move on. Number 2, checking your authentication. Let's talk about the different parts of email authentication. And they are your DNS record, your SPF record, DKIM, and DMARC. All of these are abbreviations. For example, DNS is short for Domain Name System, and SPF stands for Sender Policy Framework. But the full names aren't really important. What is important is understanding the role of each one. So your DNS is like the phone book of the internet. And as you probably know, the internet is really built on IP addresses. But to make it easier to navigate, domain names are linked to specific IP addresses. It's your DNS record that's responsible for making these connections. You can have several different types of records in your DNS records, including A records, which are the main ones, CNAME records, which are aliases, and text records, which are written as TXT records. For email authentication, we will mostly be working with CNAME and text records. But first things first, let me show you how to locate your DNS record. Okay, so let me introduce you to a great tool that you located at the MX Toolbox. And so first thing you want to do is enter your domain. So I'm going to use a specific domain for this, and then you just hit MX Lookup. And what you'll find if you scroll down here on the Super tool is that it will let you know exactly where your DNS is hosted. So you can see for this domain, the DNS is hosted on Cloudflare. Next, let's talk about your SPF record. If we go back to the analogy of email authentication is like the bouncer standing outside of your prospect's inbox, then your entire DNS record is like your ID for your domain. And your SPF record is like putting a friend's name on the VIP door list. The SPF confirms that emails sent from your CRM or email service provider are being asked to be sent on your behalf. You can only have one SPF text record, and it should include all the places you send from. There is a limit for how many sources you include on an SPF, also referred to as lookups, and that limit is 10. If you're sending bulk email from more than 10 places, it's beyond the scope of this training to talk about how to set that up. For your SPF record to work properly, it has to match the return path email. The return path email is different from the reply email. It's usually included in the header and is where feedback is sent from the inbox provider in the case that an email bounces or gets marked as spam. For CRMs, the return path is often one of their email addresses because they want the feedback to be able to update the contact record. What I've seen lately with some CRMs is that they're starting to assign a unique return path email for each customer on their CRM domain and asking you to use a CNAME record to say that that email address is associated with your domain. And that's their workaround to make you compliant. So let's check to see if you have an SPF record already set up. So while we're here at the MX Toolbox, the next thing we can do is check if there's a SPF record and if it's showing any errors. So from this pull down menu, we just go to SPF record lookup, click the button. And if it's showing up green, then we know that we have an SPF record and there's no errors. Another thing you can do to check your SPF record is send yourself an email from your CRM or whatever you use to send bulk emails and check the original, or in some email clients, it's called the header. So I'm going to show you how to do it here in Gmail. You come over to this menu over here, you click on the dots, say show original, and it will let you know here. So if there is no SPF record or DKIM record or DMARC, these will not get displayed at all. If it fails, it will put fail, but if it passes, it will let you know that as well. And a third way to check is using this great tool from my friends at Email Smart. It's completely free. You can just click this to sign up, and then it'll walk you through the process for checking your email authentication. So once you've gone through the process, you'll get a report that looks something like this, and it will either give you a green tick or a red cross to let you know if you've failed or passed. The advantage of using this system is that you can check all three in the one spot. Now let's talk about DKIM. DKIM is another way to confirm the identity of the sender. Think of it like sending a regular piece of mail, but you as the sender have your own unique type of stamp. When the person receiving that piece of mail gets it, they look at the special stamp to know this came from you. In other words, DKIM is set up on both ends. One record is set by your CRM or email service provider, and you place another record on your DNS to match their record. You can have more than one DKIM record, and you have to have one for each platform you send from. So for DKIM, because you can have multiple records, I found that the checker that here is at MX Toolbox is not always the best and sometimes produces errors. So what I recommend from that is the process of sending yourself an email and check the original or the header. I can see DKIM passed here, or using the auth checker at EmailSmart and checking if DKIM passes there. Lastly, we have DMARC. DMARC tells the inbox service provider what to do if your SPF or DKIM record fails. Think back to the bouncer analogy. If they're not on the list, don't let them in. DMARC monitoring is another topic that goes beyond the scope of this training. You want to make sure you have everything set up correctly before you give the bouncer instructions to throw them out. When first starting, it's enough just to have a record, but make sure in your record your p-value is set to none. Meaning, Google and Yahoo will see you are in compliance by having a record, but the p equals none is saying you don't want them to do anything if SPF or DKIM fails. Changing this setting to quarantine or reject is an advanced topic and beyond the scope of this training. And to check your DMARC record, you can do this at the MX Toolbox. Go down here and select DMARC Lookup. And you can see that we do not have a DMARC record set up for this domain. Once again, we can also look at the original. For this email here sent from these people, they do have a DMARC record set up, or we can use the EmailSmart authentication checker. And in this situation, for this domain, there is a DMARC record set up with p equals none for reporting. If you're finding you're getting errors or haven't got your authentication set up, it's best you get in contact with your CRM or email service provider to have them guide you. Different services use different methods, e.g. some use text records, some use CNAMEs, so it's challenging to give you specifics in this video that will cover all situations. What I'll do instead is walk you through the process for one of my setups so that you have some familiarity with the process. Okay, so let me show you how to set up some of these DNS records. So I'm inside Cloudflare. Depending on what you use for your DNS, it will look slightly different, but the process should be similar. So basically what I need to do is add a record. So I'm here in the DNS records, I add a record, and for my SPF, even though it's already set up, I would show you how to do this. So this is the information would look similar to this that you would get from your CRM or email service provider. You would have to choose what type, and for an SPF record, it's a text file or TXT file. So you would go down there, and then you set it for what domain you want to use it. So in Cloudflare, you just do a @ and that uses the root directory, and then in content you just paste what your record is. And I would click save, and we're good to go. For DKIM, check with your CRM or email service provider. It's not uncommon that there's a section within your admin that can provide you this information for the record. In this example, I'm using Keep. So I go to Marketing, and then I go to Domains, and then Connect an email domain. I can enter the domain. In this scenario, I choose the host, and that just basically gives me instructions on how to do it. Since I use Cloudflare, it is not on the list. I would recommend for Keep not to use them to set up your DMARC records. So I'm going to say I already have, and then I can continue. Now, in my experience, DKIM is mostly set up with a CNAME record, and it can be one or multiple. So in this scenario, I would just go through and create these three. So first you start with the host name. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over and add a record here. We have to be a CNAME, and I would type that, copy paste that first bit into the name field, and then I go back and I copy the value and paste it here. All right, for Cloudflare specifically, you have to have it as a DNS only, and for the TTL auto is good. If you don't have that option, then you would choose the shortest amount of time possible, and then you'd click save. Then you would go back and create a brand new CNAME for this and repeat the process for these other two. Once that's set up, you would hit confirm, and it'll try and verify. Now, sometimes verification can take up to 48 hours, so check back if it doesn't happen immediately. MX Toolbox also does have a DMARC record generator if you need assistance with that. So the first thing you do is enter in your domain. It says it finds that there's no record, so it helps us create things. So a couple of settings that I would change here when you're first starting is you definitely want to have this set to none. So make sure that is set to none. That's probably the most important thing. We're not setting up any monitoring at this stage, so you can delete both of those things. We're not asking them to demark to do anything, so we would keep that as no. I would show advanced here. We don't need to set up anything from our subdomain unless we are sending from our subdomain. We don't need to generate them a report, and that would be all we need. So if anything, we don't need these two things here because we're not mailing any reports. So really the most important value is just that v equals dmark 1, p equals none. So let me show you how I would set that up in Cloudflare. So this time it says it's going to be a text record. So I would choose text. I would copy this component. And then I will just copy up to here where the p equals none. And I can save, and then I would have a demark policy set up. So if we were to stop here, what you've done so far will get you most of the way to be compliant with the new regulations. But to take your emails to the next level and to minimize the risk of having a high spam complaint rate, we're going to go a little further. But I also have to set the expectation that the next two topics could be complete training on their own. So my goal is to increase your awareness, not to solve every possible scenario you may come across. Fair enough? Okay, let's look at number 3, content. And more importantly, how do you know if you're even doing a good job? We can start by looking at some of the metrics from your email sends. This is typically provided by most CRMs. The main 3 metrics you should look at are open rates, click-through rates, and opt-out rates. Open rates, as the name implies, is what percentage of people are opening your emails. Keep in mind, since the release of iOS 15, any email received in Apple Mail or on an email app on an Apple device will report all emails as opened, whether they were really opened or not. In other words, you can't trust the number. If your CRM is reporting that 60% of people opened your email, you can't be sure that 60% really did open it. So you can't rely on the accuracy, but since the iOS update happened quite a while ago, you can rely on the trend of this number. For example, if you're averaging a 60% open rate and all of a sudden you have an email with a 50% open rate, that's something worth investigating. Open rates can be used to gauge how effective your subject line and preview text are. If they're not where you'd like them, can you see how your PBC testing could come in handy for improving them? Next, we have click-through rate. Since we can't rely on the accuracy of the open rate, this is best calculated comparing the number of clicks to how many emails were sent. Luckily, this number is accurate, since most CRMs include some type of tracking in the link that is only triggered if someone actually clicks on the link. This can give you more of an indication of how appealing are your calls to action. There are industry averages, but there can be much variation between size of lists and different industries, so I would recommend discovering what your numbers are and see which numbers have high click-through rates compared to that. Then get curious to find out why. Opt-out rates. This is how many people opted out per email. As a rule of thumb, a 0.3% or higher is a good indicator that something is not going to plan. So how you track this information is totally up to you. Some people prefer spreadsheets. I found dashboards to be really helpful. It doesn't necessarily matter how you track. The more important thing is to track. I would also recommend looking at your emails in 2 different phases. Number 1, new leads or people who have just joined your list in the last 30 days, and existing lists. People after they've been on your list for 30 days. How someone joins your list is business dependent, but keep in mind, this is the time where they're going to be the most interested in what you have to say. So if your stats aren't significantly high during this time period, that could be a cause for alarm. A great new tool put out by my colleagues over at EmailSmart is called Deliverability Dashboard. Basically, it syncs with your CRM and can pull some of these stats for you to give you amazing insights into how your list is performing. I'm currently one of the beta testers on their updated reporting program. I have to warn you, the current reports are still in development and a little overwhelming. But as an added bonus for being part of this training, if you use my link listed below, your reports will be shared with me, and I'd be happy to follow up with you and share any insights I might see from your report. I should mention this is a completely free service, and the link is not an affiliate link. It just shares your report with me. So there's no one tool that will give you the complete picture, but let me share with you a couple of my favorites that, coupled with a knowledge of your email practices, should give you some ideas of how things are performing. So the first one I want to show you is creating some sort of dashboard. The reason I like the dashboard is so that I can combine data from different sources. So I can combine data from our CRM as well as from Google Analytics. And to assess content, I think it's good to start with just sort of a general overview. And this is what this does here. We can see our averages from previous years and we can compare performance of our emails. I typically do this on a weekly basis. And so this can show me, are there any outstanding emails that had a higher than average click-through rate? Are there any emails that had a higher than average opt-out rate? These can give me sort of clues of going back to look at either the subject line for open rates and the content for the click-through rates to see if our list was engaged in this. And then I'm able also to break down further into each broadcast to see what was happening, including what links from the email were clicked. We do use UTMs for all our links in the emails, and then were there any purchases generated from that click. Sometimes too, we also break down our sends, and I should mention for this client, we have a combination of automated sequences as well as manual sends. Our manual sends typically include 2 times a week goodwill content, and at certain times we'll run promotions. So sometimes with our goodwill emails, we will break them down by inbox provider just to see if there's any differences between the different platforms. The second tool I like is from Email Smart, their new health score. So this is showing you the beta version of this that you can get access to by using the link. And I'll walk you through it and how I use it. Now, it does give you sort of a quick summary here with visual cues to give you an idea if you're doing well or not. Then it also does provide an explanation of all the metrics that you have. And then down here, it will give a further breakout of show you your score. If you do this more than once, show your score over time, and also sort of rate you compared to all the other people who they've done this assessment on, so that you have an idea of where you might be sitting. Now, to be honest, I find that a little too much information, a little too overwhelming. So what I like to do is look just at these metrics for content to try and give me some clues of how we're performing, and then I'll just copy the score and the ranking over here. So for this example, let's have a look. So I look at content from new leads and existing leads. For new leads, I look at new lead engagement. So that's what percentage of new leads who enjoyed my list in the last 30 days have opened or clicked an email. And you're looking for this to be as high as possible. There's nothing worse than spending time and effort getting someone on a list and then they don't even consume the content. So I'm pretty happy with that score there. The other 2 metrics I look at are click to open for new leads, which were at 56.7%, and new leads clicking. Now, I think this is also where having knowledge of how someone comes onto your list. For this client, we basically got the one funnel, and they do require double opt-in, and multiple emails are sent to try and get that double opt-in confirmation. And what I realized after seeing these numbers and exploring this further, because I was hoping for this number to be a little bit higher, that I realized that our CRM was counting them as regular emails rather than a confirmation email. So we get probably 30 to 35% don't do the double opt-in, and so they counted those people as not clicking, and so that's why this number appears to be a little bit lower than what I was hoping, although from the ranking standpoint, it still scores well. For existing leads, I'm looking at these metrics. So relaxed engagement management means people have sent to in the last 30 days who have opened in the last 90 days. So once again, you want that number as high as possible. I'm pretty happy with 96%. And strict engagement is people emailed in the last 30 days and opened in the last 30 days. So basically 90% of the people who opened and engaged in the last 9 days have also engaged in the last 30 days. So I think this gives me clues on 2 things. One, the content is probably good. People are getting, we're providing what they're looking for, as well as we're sending to people who want to hear from us. So our list management is good as well. This one is clicks to opens for existing contacts. So we have about 20% of people who open actually go ahead and click. And this one is contacts who have clicked in the last year, who we've sent an email to in the last 30 days. 55%. So this number sort of was, even though it's still in the top 20% of ranking, was a little higher than I was expecting. Now, I know with this client that we have excellent list management. So I know that these people have been opening, but it's sort of a bit surprising that half our list or broadcast list haven't clicked. So that developed conversations with our content team to say, well, this client is in the health and wellness niche and sends out a lot of workouts as goodwill in these broadcasts. And so it's like prompted conversations along the line of like, why wouldn't someone be clicking? We know they're opening and we know they're interested in this stuff. And so sort of brainstormed ideas of like, maybe some of these workouts are too advanced for some people. Maybe they're too easy for people. What if we varied the level of the standard of the workout and see if that gets more people to actually click through to the workout? And then these last two metrics, it is more for people we've sent to in the last 30 days, what percentage have clicked in the last 90 days and what percentage have clicked in the last 30 days. Now, these stats were pulled from December and no one likes working out in December. So not surprising that this might be a lower number here, but it's also just giving me clues of, has there been something to keep an eye on if this trend persists? Has there been a change in what we're sending people and that they're less likely interested to click through to it? Or is there something happening with our list management? So I hope that's helpful for that. Let me show you one more just as a contrast. So this client does not require double opt-in. They have multiple sort of funnels for getting onto their list, but they currently do not have any list management in place. So if we look at that, we can see their new leads engagement really good. Of people, new leads who have just been on the list for 30 days, who open, 82% click through. So I think they're doing an outstanding job with providing new content to their new leads and providing exactly what they're looking for. So 70% of the new leads are clicking. So that's outstanding. For existing content, people they've emailed in the last 30 days, 77% have opened in the last 90 days. But only 38% have opened in the last 30 days. So it's like a 50% drop off. So that to me is sort of a bit of a sign of like, all right, what's going on here? Is it time of year? Is it the content hasn't been as good? Are we starting to have some list management issues where we're not even getting in the inbox, so people aren't even seeing these? So they're not going to open an email if it ends up in their spam folder or junk mail or something like that. So this is sort of giving me clues of like, all right, I want to keep an eye on that. Is it the content? Is it the list management? Clicks to open for existing content. So people who do open, 35% clicks. So I think that is pretty strong. And I'm not as worried about this metric of contacts who have not clicked in the last year when they don't have a list management process in place. It's hard to tell, is it the content or is it the list management? So, and then looking at people who have clicked in the last 90 days, who we've sent to in the last 30 days, a good strong number here. But once again, a dramatic drop off here in the last 30 days. So once again, that's sort of giving me clues of like, all right, something's happening here. Is it the content? Is it the list management?
And lastly, we come to number 4, list management. The reality is similar to how the advertising platforms reward the ads that have the higher engagement. Inbox providers are also moving in this direction and are more likely to deliver an email to the inbox if the user engages with the sender. Meaning you are actually hurting yourself by sending to people who haven't engaged with your emails in a long time. It's the old definition of insanity. If you've been sending someone a specific type of email at a specific frequency and they haven't opened an email in a long time, what makes you think continuing the same thing will change anything? Once again, this topic could be a whole entire training and different businesses may require a different strategy. But here's a couple of ways to gauge how you're doing.
For list management, I look at these metrics from the Email Smart health check. And so once again, the relaxed engagement means people who've emailed in the last 30 days, what percentage of them have engaged in the last 90 days? And we can see super high number here for this client. And the strict engagement is how many of them have engaged in the last 30 days of engagement, mean open or click. And it was still a very high number, so 90%. So this is indication to me that our list management, we are sending content
to the right people who are interested in seeing. So that's sort of given me clues that our list management is spot on. And then this one, I look at these two of contacts who have never opened or clicked, 0%, or contacts who have not opened or clicked in the last year. It's a very low percentage, because if someone has just not opened or clicked your email, ever or in the last year, it's probably time to stop emailing to them, especially since those accounts could be turning into spam traps. So once again, that's cluing me in that the list management for this client is very good. If we look at our second example, so people who have engaged, who have emailed in the last 30 days, have engaged in the last 90 days, high number, but a big drop off for people who have engaged in the last 30 days. So, once again, sort of supporting like, all right, maybe we need to revisit list management and potentially tighten that up again, especially when we couple with this to see that we are emailing to 10% have never opened or clicked, or have not opened or clicked in the last year. So we need to be getting those people off our list. And when we get those people off our list, that should improve our inbox placement, and hopefully improve some of these numbers. And then the last tool I like to use is Google Postmaster. And you can find this at postmaster.google.com. It'll walk you through how to set up. It just shows you stats for Gmail users that you're sending to. Unfortunately, there's no such tool for Hotmail or Yahoo. The ones I look at start off with spam rate, and so you can look at different time frames. We're just looking at 60 days here. So we can see most days we don't get any spam results, but there's a couple of days here that we do get spam results. There's two high peaks. We got a 0.4 and a 0.3. So it's going to be interesting come February when Google implements their new requirements. Now, I have been informed that they're looking more at the average, so the occasional one hopefully won't impact us that much. Other things I look at, IP reputation. Now, this client has excellent list management, and we have done a great job of maintaining our reputation. So, yes, you can see everything's green or high, but if you are seeing drops in this could definitely impact your inbox placement. So, in Gmail, so definitely things to keep an eye on. Same with domain reputation. If you see dips and then it comes back up, it's probably worth checking what did you do on those days and what might have caused that. And then also looking at authentication. So we can see that we have our authentication set up and Gmail is liking what we're sending, not having many issues here at all. Another useful hack I use as an early warning system for potential issues is having my own seed list. Basically, I add a couple of email addresses to our regular email list so that these accounts receive an email when we send to our entire list. I wouldn't recommend using your regular email. I would create a brand new Gmail, Yahoo, and Hotmail account and run it through your typical lead generation sequences to replicate what someone experiences when they first get on your list. I then check these accounts to see how things are going. Once they've gone through this initial sequence, add them to your regular broadcast list. There's definitely been times when I've found issues and emails in the spam folder, which gave me instant feedback to go troubleshoot. And lastly, let's talk about list management strategies. If you find you aren't performing well in these assessments, perhaps it's time to start testing different things. Once again, I don't want to give specific advice without knowing specifics of that situation, but here are some examples of what might be helpful. For your next bulk email send, only send to people who have engaged with you recently. If things are really bad on your assessments, you might have to really narrow your engagement window to something like the last 30 days. If things are great, keep doing what you're doing. If you're somewhere in between, start with a wider engagement window, like 6 months, and narrow it if you're not seeing improvements. Typically, the sweet spot is 60 to 90 days. Another thing you can do is send the same email, but segment your sends by major inbox providers. For example, one segment is just Gmail users, another is just Yahoo users, and a third is Microsoft users, and the fourth, everyone else. This isn't a long-term strategy, but can provide helpful insight to see if you're having issues with a specific inbox provider. In my experience, the engagement window can be different for different inbox providers. Typically, Microsoft requires the narrowest. For someone who might just fall outside of your engagement window, don't give up on them, but maybe it's time to try something different. For example, enter them into a win-back automation, offering your best content or something of value to see if they re-engage. If they do, then you can add them back onto your regular list. You can try a check-in type email, like maybe a short email just saying, is everything okay? Another type of email I've seen used is announcing that you're breaking up with them, and if they don't engage with this email,
they may never hear from you again. Another strategy is changing the frequency of how often you send them. So for this person who's unengaged, if your regular cadence is 2 times a week, maybe you just send them the same content, but just 1 time a month. Now, once again, there's no one fits all winning strategy, but hopefully this prompts some ideas for you. And lastly, despite your best efforts, sometimes you just have to stop sending and accept they're just not that into you anymore. Did you know that inbox providers can turn email accounts that haven't been accessed in over a year into spam traps? Meaning it's a red flag if you keep sending to these addresses. So never ever send to anyone who hasn't opened an email from you in over a year. I know this can all sound like a lot of work, but if your email is not performing as well as you would like, start with your email authentication check. If that's okay, pick just one thing from this training and start with that. Realize this is a test and reassess process, and it takes some time. The good news is there are now some affordable tools that can help automate some of the list management practices. My friends over at Email Smart have something called Smart Defender. That might be worth a look if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I hope this has been helpful.